Well, welcome everybody to the ESUCC webinar with Voss Lighting and Randy Eric. He's going to be introducing his team and going over the upgrading your facilities and lighting webinar. So Randy, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, and you'll throw up the slides, Craig?
I don't have your slides.
Okay.
You should be able to go ahead and share your screen.
I can do it without slides.
Okay.
That way we can keep a visual of this old guy talking versus looking at a bunch of bullet points and text on a screen. How's that? So
good. We do
okay.
have one previously recorded that shows the slides, but I think that's specifically LED, so that may be.
Yeah, so Adam, what this is all about is the 5 simple steps that we use to do an LED lighting upgrade project. And it starts with a discovery meeting, the initial meeting where we just come in and we get to understand the challenges and issues and the goals of a school district on why they're even thinking of LED. But it's really the key step of the whole process, because we want to get that true understanding of where you're at. And even though we know LED has a positive impact on the learning environment, the test scores, the grades, behavior attitudes, which impacts staff morale, those things are all proven through research. We get it. When it gets right down to it, it's a financial decision. And when you look at what is it, LB 644 that hit you guys this last year, that's made things more challenging, especially for districts where I kind of chuckle, but real growth in their calculations, determining what real growth is always kind of a gray area. Oh, look at this. He's come up with the slides. So anyway, in that discovery, we really want to get a feel for the financial. Can you afford it? Or where can the funds come from? Are there funds already available that maybe you're overlooking that can be reallocated? So the very first thing we like to do is talk financial, because we don't want to take your time up if it's not going to make financial sense, or at least figure out when it will. Maybe it's not in the summer of 2023, but it's in the summer of 2024, or it's a multi-phase where it's over 2-3. I just met with a superintendent 2 days ago, and it's going to have to be a 2-year phase, because again, going back to LB 644, they got $115,000 increase for their budget, while their staff increases alone surpassed that. So they just don't have the money, and their building fund levies already locked in for a $4 million gym project that was done a couple years ago. So they're still paying that off. But so what we do first is we do a high level cost benefit analysis in that meeting. And it's pretty much done by saying, okay, what's the square foot of your building? And typically you and your peers know that, but if not, you can spin around, grab your insurance binder, and it's on one of the first 2 pages in there. But I'm just going to use an example of a district that we're working on right now. And when we first talked to them in this discovery meeting, we said, okay, what's your square footage? And they said it was for the middle school. They have a 3-building district, and the middle school was 55,000 square feet. We said, okay, we're seeing where projects are coming in $1.10 to $1.50 a square feet. And that variation comes down to play with the scope of work. Is it going to be just lamp replacements, or is it going to be full fixture replacements? Is there a gym included or not a gym included? So anyway, for that example, we said, okay, it's 55,000 square feet at $1.10. That was 59,000 and some odd dollars would be the project cost. But we said, now wait, what's the true net investment? So we said, okay, what's the rebates? And rebates can typically be around 8% of that amount. It's just a number that we found is somewhat consistent. So we take that out, and it brought us down now $5,000. So now we're at a $55,000 project for them. But we said, okay, what's your energy cost on a year? Because we know lighting's going to, when you go to LED technology, it's much more efficient. It's going to reduce that energy cost. So they told us, okay, we're at 50,000 in electric cost. 40% of that typically is lighting. So there's 20% of that is for lighting that we can have a direct impact on. And we know LED runs 50 to 60% of savings. So on a conservative, if we took 50% of that 20,000 electric cost, that's specifically lighting, we knew we were going to save them $10,000 plus some. So then we look at, it's also in fact affecting HVAC, because you have less heat load with LED technology than you do with fluorescence and incandescence and metal halides and all the good old stuff. So there's a formula that they use in the industry that 15% of that electric savings can also come in HVAC. So therefore, we have 10 in lighting, we have another 1,500 in HVAC, and then last, you have maintenance savings, because you're not going to be buying the lamps and bulbs anymore. You're not going to be buying ballast. You're not going to be paying an electrician to rewire ballast or what. So we have to figure out what that is. And in that case, we did $1,000. So this district, it had a $55,000 net investment, drop off that 12,000 that we just shared there. Now they really have a $43,000 upfront project to do. So we say, okay, 43, is that something that's in your budget, or is there a place that we're not thinking about that it can be reallocated from? And to give you an example of reallocation, and Brendan's on this call. Brendan and I were meeting with the superintendent, and they had their building fund levy that they were using to build up for a construction project. So they were just stockpiling money that in 5 years they wanted to go and do this project. And we said, well, you realize that lighting typically pays for itself in about 5 years. So we could borrow from that earmarked funds and then turn around, and the savings every year go back in, so it's replenished by the time you need it. And he goes, oh, I never thought of that. So that's how we got the project development going with that district, is by finding that. Another one is, we say, well, is there other facility improvement measures that you're thinking of doing? And an example that we had was, the district was looking to do roofing and replace the roof. You know how it is. The insurance company forces you to replace roofs as soon as the warranty's out, so they're protected. Not really you. It's to protect them from having any cash outlay on premium or on any payments to the district. Well, they had a $200,000 roof replacement. And we asked, well, can we bring in one of our collaborative partners to take a look and see what the recommendation is? So we did, and ended up being a $27,000 repair that they then warranted for 7 years and kept the roof not being a concern to the district for that long. So now they're spending 27 versus 200. So we just freed up 173 that they actually had, and was able to put that towards different projects, lighting being a part of that. So discovery is truly discovery. It's finding what your needs and challenges are, and challenges always end up being financial to some degree. So we talk through that and figure that out. So that's where we are on the discovery. Do you got questions before we move on to the next slide?
No.
Okay. So then we go into the facility survey, and this might seem just black and white. We're going to do our walkthrough. We're going to look outdoors. You may be thinking, okay, let's focus on the classrooms, or let's do a gym upgrade, but we'll take a look outdoors too and see, is there proper coverage? We'll start asking questions of staff, maintenance, you, whoever, just make sure that this proper safety is taken care of outside, or maybe we find out you're going to add security cameras, more so for forensics or just for visitors when they're at basketball games in the dark, so there's no break-ins or whatever. But that may mean, hey, we need to upgrade the lighting a little bit so the security cameras have a better results for what you're after. So we'll look outdoors as well as indoors. Interviewing staff, and again, thinking holistically because of the example I just gave on the roof or on the HVAC. HVAC, just, I was reading the other day, it's kind of scary where the dollars increases are coming there. They're looking at 25 to 30% increase in HVAC equipment purchasing in 2023. You know, we saw a year ago lighting go up as much as 12 to 15%, but now it's economy's kind of controlling it in the 6% increases now, but HVAC is going to be 25 to 30%. So we can also look at HVAC to see if there's any positive impacts we can have on that to help you soften the blow of any cost increases there and share some ideas. Again, we'll go deeper into the electric bill. And I was talking to Craig when you came on, dealing with Holdridge, right where Craig's at. So Craig kind of understands it. They have utility rates where they're billing you for usage of only 4.5 cents. Hey, that's a bargain, right? But they put a demand charge on there. And that demand charge ends up taking it to where the average cost is 13 cents. So it's important for us to analyze those bills and see how can we get that down to where maybe it averages 8, 9, 10 cents versus 13. So if we didn't look at the energy bills, we would just be able to impact the demand slightly and maybe get it down to 11 just because of what the lighting does. But now that we know there's that crazy high aggressive demand charge, we're able to look at other things. And one of the things is HVAC, because that's a high energy user too. So we're able to facilitate with their HVAC controls people and get us in a room together and find out how we can schedule the startups of equipment differently. So everything's not coming on at the same time and the peak rate goes up. It's 7 in the morning when you go to heat the building down, or everything's running at 11 o'clock when all the kitchen appliances come on also. So things like that go beyond lighting, we would coordinate and facilitate with the HVAC people. So that's what we're doing in the survey. Another thing we look at is, you know, I mentioned the scope of work. Is it just lamps only, or is it fixtures? It may be fine just to go lamps only because your fixtures are in good shape. They're attractive. They're not beat up. They're not old school egg crate looking type. So lamps may be the way to go. What do you got up there?
Maybe. I'll let you guys see. I'll give you the
Okay.
tour. Oh, I guess you can't really see it because maybe you can see the ones out, but yeah, they're about 4x4 squares, 2 foot wide, 4 foot long. So I don't know if those are egg crates or what, but I think they're fluorescent.
Well, when I say egg crate, that would be like you have little
tiny
puny
ones.
squares.
Yeah.
You have a solid cover on them.
No,
You
they're just squares. I mean, there's no cover.
So they're the architectural evil kit type guys is what I'm thinking I saw. So to me, that if you like the looks of them, there'd be no reason to replace the whole fixture. So we would look at that. And then the other thing we're looking at on the survey is there needs and places for controls that you don't have them now. And when I say controls, it may just be simple dimming. or it may be occupancy sensors. As someone entered the room, the lights come on. Or you may have dimming where the front of the classroom, you want it to be dimmed while the projector's in use, but the back of the room, you want it lit up more. Things like that we start looking at in the survey. Another thing, without getting too deep in the weeds here, is if we replace the lamps only and leave those existing fixtures up there, do we just go with what we call an instant fit and leave the ballast in place? When you do that, sure, you have the ballast to deal with down the road when it goes out, needing to replace it. But on the front end, your labor goes down drastically because now you're just replacing bulbs. And if it's a small project, it can be done with your own team, your own maintenance staff. And then we just design the project, provide the product. So those are the things we're looking for when we're in the survey stage, is what makes the most sense. Some of that comes out of that financial discussion. How can we drive it down to make it financially feasible? Other comes when we're actually in that survey and we're finding out what makes the best sense to improve the learning environment. So that's the survey piece of it. So Craig. So then after we got that, we go back and we put together our preliminary audit. And I'd say preliminary audit / cost benefit analysis. Remember, in the discovery meeting, we did a high level cost benefit. This is going to give us the accurate numbers now. And if I go back to the school I was using, that was 60,000. It doesn't always happen this great, but when we put the numbers together, we came back, it was 59,000. We were 1,000 off the high level. But in the rebates, we said 5 and it was 48.92. So those numbers we hit pretty close. But where we got off is they had the demand charge and the usage charge. We were projecting 10,000 savings. We're going to actually save them 13,500 because of how we could manipulate that demand component of it. So it was a little bit better. And when it was all said and done, we're at like a 3-year payback. That's pretty doggone. That's really good. And that's not typically where we're at. You're usually going to be in that 5 to 7 year range. But again, it depends on the scope. You start adding a gym in there, that's going to go up pretty quick because you've got a lot of high bay fixtures. But then on the same note, the return on investment gets better because the gym is where the lights are used the most often. So the payback gets better. The investment goes up, but the payback gets better. So, but that.
And what are some general figures on if it's a 5 to 7 year payback? What is the life expectancy of the upgrades?
Oh, great question. You usually have about a 60,000 hour life expectancy, and you have roughly 8,400 hours in a year. We know they're not on 24/7, but you could easily be on 12 hours a day when you got your custodial work happening after school's out and they're turning on at 7 in the morning. So if you did a 12-hour and you got 60,000 or 12 hours a day equals about just under 4,000 a year because you're not running them on Sundays. So you can see there's 15 years that those lights are going to be good for. A gym may be slightly less because you definitely are running those 12 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week with youth activities on the weekend or not. But you're definitely 15 plus that those are going to last. And if you had, great question, 5 to 7 years payback, you're living scot-free almost for the next 8 to 12 years before it's time to replace. Good question, Adam. Appreciate that one. Okay, so at this point, and you see where that arrow is, a bundled solution. We may come back in the audit because we're looking at things holistically during that survey and say, hey, we think it makes good business sense to bundle something. And I had a school district the other day that when Brian and I were surveying it, I went into the big room to count lights off of the cafeteria, and back in the corner, they had this really nice Hilliard Supply cleaning setup. Had 4 different types of cleaners, disinfectants, sanitizers in there. So I asked, what are you spending a year for that? And it was over $4,000 a year for all these supplies. So as part of a bundled solution, we came back and said, here's the lighting, but we as an option recommend bundling in an aqueous ozone cleaning system, which is one of the best things going for schools because there's no chemicals, and all cleaning that's out there has chemicals. So it's much better for the learning and working environment. And a company that Craig has as a co-op, a vendor, approved vendor in the co-op purchasing program is Sanzonate, based out of Omaha. And they have a product that is water. It's all aqueous ozone is. It breaks down the components, and they can now use that. They have an upfront cost, say, of about $6,000. Well, this school was going to save over $4,000 a year. So it's like, you really should look at doing this, because in a year and a half, it's paid for itself. So that's something that we would provide as an example or a recommendation that could be bundled in, or it could be handled directly with Sanzonate company. So this audit that we come back with is going to say, okay, we say preliminary because we're coming back with things that you may want to include like that, or you may not. But if everything makes financial sense, then we say, okay, let's get a commitment with the letter of intent. That's one way to describe it. Typically what happens is we're in front of the board at this time, sharing our recommendations and our pricing. And they'll say, okay, let's go this way. Let's go with the lamps. And if you can do it at plus minus 10% of what you're saying here, when you come back with the final proposal at next month's board meeting, we are ready to approve. So it may be a board resolution at that time versus a letter of intent is where I'm getting at. So that's why I call this a preliminary, because while we have good, pretty accurate numbers, we still want your direction, because we are bringing things that you may want to go down this path or another. Mike Little's on this call, and we were at a private school last Friday, and the direction given to us was to go that instant fit way, and their own staff would do it. It's a private school. They're really limited on funds. They don't even have LB 644 funds, so it's worse yet for them, because anything they get is coming from donations. So they wanted to look at going instant fit, and then we would provide the product, provide management support, yet turnkey the gymnasium, because they do need new fixtures in the gym and also in the auditorium. So now we're going back with the final proposal with that direction from them, our customer. Questions on that? Good. Okay.
So that would be the first point that you're asking the district to make a financial commitment, would be after this preliminary audit.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good question too. There's no financial commitment up to this point, because we want to make sure that we have everything black and white, and then it aligns with what their expectations are. I mean, why would we ask them to commit if we can't line up? Maybe it's, what's the maximum investment that they're willing to spend? What do they see as a reasonable, simple payback? If it's 9 years, that doesn't make sense. So I wouldn't even expect them to approve something. But if we can do it under 7 or 6, based on what we show, they can say that. You know, and here's another thing too, and this is why co-op purchasing program is so good. You may have a preferred contractor in your district that is a very good supporter, alumni, been in the community forever, whatever, and they do good work. Well, if you went out on the streets and bid all this, they could potentially not even have an opportunity to do that. So if you wanted to protect them, that could be another expectation is, okay, we'll do this if at this price, as long as John's Electrical Service is the contractor who does the work. And we would already have gotten that pricing from them if you directed us to do that early on. But that's a great thing, not only for co-op purchasing, because you can protect your preferred contractors, keep as much money in your community as you can, but it's just a way to control things on your end. So that would be another thing you could put in the expectations before we come back with the final. Onward, Craig. So, and I kind of covered that. I mean, it's just a commitment to proceed. So project development proposal delivery. What does it look like with Voss? You know, we're going to finalize the scope. We're going to finalize investment. You're going to approve the project. Then we'll mobilize. We'll manage the project and provide the warranty ongoing support. And we'll do all those things no matter how you and the board decide to proceed. And when I say that is, typically we do a turnkey project and we develop it, deliver it, do the whole 9 yards. But there are times when you get way up there, and I don't see that in your size of school, but there's board members sometimes that are a little nervous about not giving an opportunity for others to bid. Some are just under the feeling that competitive bidding shows the constituents, the taxpayers, that we're doing justice with the money and being good stewards of it. So I say in that case, even though co-op purchasing meets competitive bid requirements, you may still want to take a piece of it. So we could say, hey, under the products, we've been vetted through the co-op purchasing. We can do all of that. And we've done it in a district before where we bid out the labor component of it, just so you say, okay, because it was $200,000 worth of product. And some of the board members were a little nervous of just not bidding anything. So they wanted to appease people, like, well, we bid some of it. So that's something that can be done too. So I call that a hybrid approach. In that case, if I remember right, we were probably about 130,000 in product, and there was about 70,000. It just went over 200 by a little bit, 70,000 in labor. So.
And I'm assuming with those numbers, all of our statutory requirements for bidding are covered with that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, onward, Craig.
One final, or maybe you're gonna get to it there. So we're sitting in here the middle of November. What would be the time frame for doing something in this next summer of 23? Like when does this, what's kind of the latest date that a decision could be made to still get work done?
In the past, I would say February, with second Mondays of the month board meetings, sometimes March, but not anymore. Now everyone's getting things done in December. So January becomes kind of the last resort. And a lot of that is, there is, as we all know, the product on the lighting side isn't too bad these days. I mean, we can get most things in 6 to 8 weeks, especially for a school when you're talking lamps or 2x4 fixtures for the gym or classrooms. That stuff's all pretty readily available within 2 months. It's the labor that becomes the challenge anymore. There's not enough to go around. So electrical contractors are booking up, because summer's your construction months, are booking up all their labor earlier. I mean, one district we're working with, they wanted to get approval by November because they understood that, and they had a preferred contractor, and they knew that preferred contractor did book up very early. When we control, or I don't want to use the word control maybe, but are responsible for the labor, we have a few more avenues of partners to work with. So it's not like that district had one only and they knew they were going to book up. I mean, we work with a half a dozen, so it's a little easier. So long answer to that question, but I'd say January's the worst. And the process, I mean, to get from that discovery meeting to survey to preliminary to final, I mean, that can all be done in the month of November and December, to where you're presenting a preliminary in December and an approval in January, but you're right there on the cuffs of as far out as you want to go at this point.
That's kind of what I figured, but I just didn't. Sure.
See, you figured that, and I just made a 5-minute answer out of it.
Well, I'm providing opportunities for the people that are viewing later that to kind of help guide them through this, right?
There you go. Much appreciated. So why Voss Lighting, just to kind of sum it up, is, you know, we are a top 3 customer of Philips, which is one of the top 3 lighting manufacturers in the world. So in the US, we're one of their top 3. And so we get to buy direct from them, where others have to go through a sales rep organization. We get to go direct through, so that takes a cut or a markup out of the picture, which keeps us more competitive. And because we work with the leading manufacturer as well as other leading ones, it's quality versus lower life cycle or lower cost. What you get is gonna last. It's gonna last that 15 to plus years. Others can come in with lower quality and it may last 10 years. It may last 8 years, and they're long gone by the time it fails. But we're even seeing where things are failing in the first or second year with some of the stuff that's on the market. So all LED is not the same. And this one here about added value to preferred contractors, and Brendan's on, and Brendan loves this story, but we had a school gymnasium, Concordia Lutheran in Omaha, that was going to use their local preferred contractor to do the work, and we just provide product. And I said, well, you know, we really need to come in and survey this and get an understanding of your light levels and the distribution. And we went in there, and this gym is only 7-8 years old, and they had 53 fixtures scattered through that gym, and we were able to reduce that to 38. Well, if they would have just relied on their contractor and told them to buy the fixtures from us, he would have bought 53 new fixtures. So we were able to save them a lot of money by taking 15 fixtures out of there. So that's just an example I like to share, is if there's local ECs out there or preferred ones, is we bring value because we go deep into the development and truly figuring out the best solution. And last, we just focus on low net costs. And the key thing is trying to make them budget neutral, positive cash flow solutions whenever we can. So again, we go back to that financial perspective. Yes, it's about the learning environment at the end of the day, but it's also about fitting within the budgets that you guys get strapped with anymore. And the last 2, we really don't need to get into. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. Other questions, comments?
I don't think so. I think I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk more about it and go through the process. So for our district personally here, I don't know that a solution for this summer, like you said, with the short time frame. I'm new to the district, trying to just get my hands wrapped around what's been done, what's some potential projects in the future. But I think, like, well, lighting pays for itself basically. So that would probably be a wise move for us in the not too distant future.
Yeah, and we can come out and do that, you know, talk in more detail and do that survey and audit, just so you can kind of see where that falls in priority for upcoming years as you start to have your talks. I mean, I met with the district last week. That was the whole intent. We knew there was nothing coming for 2023, but they had so many moving parts that they needed to know, okay, what kind of dollars? He goes, I can guess what it is, but what would it really be? And it was a 82,000. So then when we put that together, he says, well, we may be able to do half of it then this year instead of having to wait, but that's for the B&G committee to figure out. So he was going to share that with them.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Well, appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for taking time out of your day to visit.
All right.